If you found yourself floating through space on a ball of dirt rock and water at 66,000 miles per hour around a huge bottle, not a bottle, a huge ball, man. Not a bong, man. A huge ball of nuclear fusion, man. Then you might have found yourself outside of the grid. Welcome to the show. 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 We have Thompson with us, man.
What's up, y'all?
We fucking chilling and shit, bro. We making food. That's what we do a lot. Man, we made all kinds of shit. We made some sushi one time, man.
That's what it's all about, man. I just finished off my leftover sushi from coming back from Texas. I stopped on the way and got some. I can't resist.
So
It's addictive.
He's not telling us why he went to Texas. He is our correspondent to Starship. Isn't it Starship?
Starship, Starbase, Brownsville, Texas.
Boca Chica.
It's the new, like Florida was the space coast back then. I think Texas is the new space coast, maybe.
Well, that's kind of fitting. Texas is the center of the fucking world, man. That's what I've always heard. Hey, I got to spend my summers in Texas. I was very fortunate. And around Arlington, Texas, and Dallas, Texas, and that whole area, Fort Worth, it's all connected. I mean, you can't really tell. Used to, back when I first started going there, you could say, oh, yeah, there's the end of one and there's the beginning of the other. But these days, my friend, it's all the same thing. You hit Texas line over there, and it's pretty much all the same all the way through, man. But I got to go there and go swimming pools, man. We go to swimming pools during the day. He'd be playing Marco Polo with a bunch of people in a public pool is what I was going to. Polo. And then at nighttime, we'd go to Six Flags over Texas and watch live bands. The first time I was there, I saw all kinds of bands there, but the very first one I ever saw, I never will forget it, was they walked out on stage, man, and it was just this huge explosion back then, man. And this one guy, man, the lead guy says, hey, it's a big, green, ugly thing. It's Godzilla.
Godzilla.
Then it goes. Remember that?
That is awesome.
With a purposeful grimace and a terrible sound, he pulls the spinning high tension wires down. Anyway, so Tommy, was in, here's right. Tommy was in, he was down in Brownsville, which is very close to the Mexican line where all this is going on, the great stuff going on down there. And he's been to, Tommy, come over and spend a little bit of time and tell him how many trips you've made down and what you've seen, the evolution of what you've seen over what.
Man, that was my third time to go down there. I drove the first time back in 2023 for the first launch. That was nice. It blew a big hole under the launch pad that they were not expecting. Some people were. I figured there would be a hole, but it was a bigger hole than. Anyway, they fixed that, and they put in a water suppression system that takes the heat and the energy out of the launch. That's a lot of force that has to be directed away from the launch pad. And that was the first launch. And then I didn't come back until last month for my second, which was the fifth launch last month. And I came back. It was the first time they caught it. They caught a very large. It's called a Starship booster as it came back from boosting it boosted its spaceship up to space, and then it turned around and came back and fell back to its landing pad, and I caught it on the first try, which is pretty nice.
That is that is pretty nice. Now I'm going to tell you. It's okay. But there's a lot. We can go into deeper on what you've thought about this thing in the past. I don't know if people's ever heard you talk about it that before. You're welcome to talk about that in this context. You've had some ideas with it before. Again, with that last one, let's talk about it for just a second before we go to deeper. Just from what I see as an external person, man, I saw that thing come back and land like that. Man, that was just truly amazing. But now you've been with this a while. You've had some thoughts on it. Tell if you would kind of tell your where you come from on this.
Sure, man. Yeah, I just last Tuesday was the 6th launch, and I went down there, and I'm staying at a camp that's very close to the launch site, and there's a rumor going around that Trump's here. And I'll be danged if Donald Trump didn't come and tour the Starship production facility that was just within a rock's throw of where I was at, which is the Rocket Ranch down in Brownsville. It's a campsite where you can go and get a ticket to go to a viewing of a launch, and you get a very, very close personal experience with a Starship launch. Anyway, Trump saw the catch last month on TV of the Starship coming back. It's very spectacular. I mean, it's an over 200-foot tall grain silo looking thing, but it has engines, and it literally fell to earth, breaking the sound barrier and guiding itself back to the launch pad and then being caught by 2 gigantic robotic arms. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and if people may remember him talking about that, he was having a hard time putting it into words because it's hard to explain if you've never seen it. I mean, literally, the booster part of the rocket, it's attached to the head of the rocket, which is going to be carrying supplies and people one day, the booster stuff that has all the fuel. Attached to the rocket, boosted up into the sky, into space, right up to the edge of space, releases it, and like you said, and it flies back down. It has...
Turns around.
Turns around.
Mm-hmm. Does a U-turn. Pulls a U-ey at the edge of space. And this only takes 4 minutes for this gigantic rocket to do its job. It takes about 4 or 5 minutes to push this giant spaceship up to the speed of about, 17,000 miles an hour, and pull a U-turn, fire its engines to stop that forward acceleration, and it basically just stops firing its engines and lets itself fall back to Earth under gravity.
Let me say this something about this technology, and I want Tommy to kind of follow up with a little bit on this too. But this technology, in the past, this thing just fell in the ocean,
just thrown away.
Thrown away. I mean, just literally, thrown away. It was not sustainable. Like where we come from in the southern part of Arkansas, you use every part of the pine tree, and if you're not, somebody's losing some money somewhere. And they were losing money. And, went through and found out that they could catch this thing if they put a little bit of technology in it. And that's exactly what they did. And my friend Tommy here, I like to brag about it because he had some influence on the thought of that. And I'd like for him to talk just a thumbnail of it.
Okay.
Just a thumbnail of it.
All right. Well, long story short, I came up with the idea to catch the spaceship. Elon was looking for a way to do away with the crush legs that they were using. Spaceships in science fiction and reality have always had legs to land anywhere. I mean, that just makes sense. And Elon said basically that that's dead weight. I don't like carrying around dead weight. It's someone else in the rocket business called it parasitic mass, which is it's dead weight. Anywho, I was watching a gun show after I watched Elon's little video talking about the legs, and this guy visited a cannon, a very large World War I cannon in France, and I imagine that cannon firing and the recoil compensator of the gun, it's a big gun, and I associated that with the same mechanical stuff going on as a ship landing. You got to have a big round thing that comes to a stop suddenly after. It just looks like the landing a spaceship to me. So I thought about it that night after watching that video, and during the first thing, it's kind of funny. The first thing that occurred to me, Brad, I was like, okay, that looks like you could use that to land a spaceship. The recoil cannon. I'm like, how am I going to use that on the ship?
Yes.
I'm like, well, you can't put it on the ship because that's heavy. I mean but so I finally came up with a smart ass. I was being a smart ass to myself. I'm like, well, what are you going to do? Land on it? And that turns out to be exactly the solution.
Yeah.
You land on the legs.
Yes.
Basically. That's it. You land on the legs that are already on the ground.
Yes.
And the key being you have to land on the legs or you're in trouble.
Oh, one time, if I'm not badly mistaken, I saw him float above the water with that thing for a second, didn't he?
You talking about these spaceships coming in for a landing?
Didn't Elon him float something above the water down there one time?
They dispose of these test vehicles in the ocean, and they pretend to land on dry ground in the ocean, but there's no ground. They just land as if there was, and of course that doesn't work. But that's what they do, and they did that last Tuesday with the booster because it was unable to return as they did last month because of a communication problem with the tower and the booster. I think when the ship launched, it broke the communication tower. Elon said that they probably could have still did it without the communication, but they didn't want to chance that, so they did not. Especially since our future president was around the corner there.
Yes, and there was probably 300 people over there. You had the president-elect sitting there, so they couldn't risk it. But I mean, they could probably. I don't know if they could do it by hand, but I know that they could. There's probably redundant systems, but it's probably not as reliable. Anyway, so it's a fascinating time. It's a very fascinating time to see what all is going on with Starship, SpaceX over there, and it's great that we've had Tommy to come through and kind of show us tell us what's going on with it, kind of put it into context. I wouldn't know nearly as much about it as I know now, which is very little, had I not had some influence from Tommy on it, getting me. Actually, I was interested in it, but I wasn't following it, and now I'm having to follow it a little bit more because it's kind of like the history of CrossFit. When I got involved with the history of CrossFit, I'm like, oh man, this is neat. And the next thing I know, I'm over my neck in it. I hadn't got up to my neck like Tommy here, driving all the way down to Brownsville, Texas. We got about a minute and a half here of little bit of time here, but I'm just going to tell you this. Tommy's most recent trip, he's over there cooking us some steak. My wife had a birthday, and he's like, well, I'm going to cook y'all some dinner. So we're getting dinner cooked up in here. But anyway, while Tommy was on his trip down there, he had an experience with his vehicle. You want to tell us about it, Tommy?
Yeah. I was driving my dad's old 2009 Mercury granny car, and the rear end started making noise, and it got louder and louder and louder until it sounded like I was dragging 30 metal garbage cans behind the car. And so I just whipped up into a used car lot and had to get me a Kia because that car was dead.
He set her free in Texas. He went down there and saw the rocket ship blast away, and not really the Brewster didn't land like it did, but he had a great time and got himself a new to him car. And we're coming to the end of it. Brad Barfield,
Tommy Thompson Jr.
We're signing out. We appreciate you listening outside of the grid. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you would. Thank you. Goodbye.